Jessica.
And today we are here with our September wrap-up.
Let's wrap it up.
Let's
put a bow on it. For Ellie's birthday.
Let's be done. Because this has not been successful for me. It has for her, but I'm ready to move on.
Hey, it started out, and then it got better for me, so I'm happy where things ended.
Fall break is in October, and it's calling my name.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
With the not so good books I read this month. The first book I read this month was The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi, I think. This is the first book I've ever read by this author, and it'll probably be the last. I thought the concept of this book was interesting at first, but it just got really confusing, and I feel like it was just so do you ever feel like authors write themselves kind of in a trap, like where it's so confusing that they're not quite sure how to get out of it? That's what I feel like this book was. So I think I would probably give this book like a 2.5.
Fair. Okay, my first book is digital, and that is The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is the last book in the Truly Devious trilogy, which then was added on, and now it's a series. So I'm not really sure how I feel about the ending now, knowing that there's more books. Don't really know if it's a new mystery, if it's connected. I have no idea. But I'll just give you a brief synopsis of the first book so I don't spoil anything. This follows a girl who attends Ellingham Academy. She's been obsessed with true crime all her life. A murder or disappearance, we don't know, took place there years and years ago, and it became a cold case. Nobody solved it, so she's like, you know what? I'm going to solve it. And then people start dying currently, present day at the school, so she solves their murders too. It's very interesting.
The next book I read, Emmalynn and I were supposed to buddy read, and that didn't happen. I'm the only one that finished it. And that was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So this book is described as fried green tomatoes and still magnolias meets Dracula, which are all things that I love. But I didn't love this book. So the premise of this book is there's this group of women who all live kind of mediocre lives. They have a book club and they read like lame books that no one wants to read, but like this main lady makes them. And so one of the ladies decides like, hey, why don't we actually read things that we want to read? And that's going to be like thrasher, true crime type books. So they start reading these books and they're like actually loving their book club now. And then this mysterious man moves in next door. And I'm sure you can figure out right from the get-go who he is in this book. But I liked the vibes of this book because it was Southern. They talk about football. They talk about, I don't know, just things that like I get because I grew up in the South. And I like the 90s. It's set in the 90s. But the men in this book, I wanted to literally kill them all. I wish the vampire man would have just ate all the men because they all sucked. Like, they were all just terrible husbands. And maybe that was his point, but like, kill off the men, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if they're just such sucky people. But it's like, this lady suspects that this guy is a vampire. No one will believe her, especially not her husband. And so they just make her out to be crazy. And it just made me mad.
Are you done?
I'm done. I give it 3 stars, I think.
You did not say one good thing about it except
I liked the South. And I liked the football, and I liked
the writing.
The writing was funny. There was like definitely some funny parts. I liked it better than this, so I have to give it a 3.
That's
if
fair.
this is a 2.5, okay?
I gotta fix my names because why are they just like acquaintances? I need them to be friends. My next book is The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and let me tell you, it could have been half the size. It could have not existed.
Oh no.
It's not that it was bad. but the content in it was like something in which you would find in a novella, and this book is
over 500 pages.
No. How long are you?
Does it have pages?
472 pages. And let's just look up really quick the length of Inheritance Games, because I don't understand. Inheritance Games is 384. So this is 100 pages longer, but it's basically a novella. Like, this is a spin-off, but it's not a spin-off series because it says on Goodreads, Inheritance Games number 4. It doesn't say the Brothers Hawthorne number 1. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just, Like, this made me hate Grayson more. I feel like all the comments are like, justice for Grayson, but I think he's a baby, and I'm so tired of his pity parties. He's so rich. He's so smart. Why can't he just figure it out? And that's all I have to say. Best part was Nash.
Okay, the next book we both read, and that is Counting the Cost, which is a memoir of Jill Duggar. Now, we watched, backstory. Growing up, Emmalynn and Ellie both, our family watched, what is it even?
19 Kids
19 Kids and Counting. Then we watched the spinoff about Jill and Jessa. And then, so we've closely followed their family. We're from Oklahoma, they're from Arkansas, so it was kind of like,
it's a no-brainer.
It's just kind of a common thing. Like, if you live in Oklahoma, you're a Christian family, you watch the Duggars. But then we obviously have followed the toxic drama surrounding their family, and then we watched the documentary of the Shiny Happy People, which I thought was interesting. I don't think it was the most well done documentary that existed. I felt like it threw Christians and homeschool families as a whole under a bus, but that's a whole rant for another day. But when we were watching that, she was talking about her book coming out, and I was like, you know what? I want to give this little girl some of my money. So I pre-ordered this book, and it came in this month, and I read it in like 24 hours, I think. And then Emmalynn immediately read it. A couple of my friends are reading it at the same time as me. And I'm not a huge nonfiction reader, so when I'm able to read something that's nonfiction as fast as I did, it grasped my attention. But I feel like this is one of the most well done memoirs that I've read, because I feel like while she is telling her side of the story, she continues to remain respectful to her family, and she, even though is talking about a lot of the negative things that happened in her family and a lot of the abuse in a lot of ways, she still, I feel like, sought to glorify God in telling her side of the story. So if you're interested, or you watch the documentary and it kind of piqued your interest, I would definitely pick this up. And justice for Jill, I don't know. I would give it 5 stars. I don't really give nonfiction books, especially someone's own personal story. It feels kind of weird to rate someone's story, but I really enjoyed it, so I would give it 5 stars.
Okay. How many do you have?
I have 4 left.
Oh, why don't you go ahead? I got 2.
The next book I read was Dark Triumph, and this is book 2 in the His Favorite Assassin series. This book follows a different main character from the first book. Her name is Sabella, and she is an assassin for death. And so she came to the convent to kind of flee her bad family situation, but then the convent wanted her put back in her bad family situation to kind of be undercover for them. And then you learn as time goes on why that is, which I can't really talk about because that'd be a spoiler. But I just find this series really fascinating. I feel like it's unique because it's a historical fantasy. So I will continue this series, and I would say it's a 4-star read.
Okay, my next book is the only one left, which Mom just read at the end of August. And she raved and raved, and so I read it, and now I'm going to rave and rave. I absolutely love this book. Definitely redeemed Riley Sager for me. I read The House Across the Lake maybe like beginning of this year, and I didn't really like it that much, but I mainly had a problem with the main character, and just I feel like he used something as a way to close the story because he didn't know how. But I'm not going to say anything else because I will spoil it. But I loved the 80s vibes. This book was creepy. I definitely saw a few things coming, just not necessarily in the way I expected. Because some things I was like, there's no way this would even make sense. And then he has all this backstory of how it makes sense, and it's very fascinating. This book is just like perfectly creepy without being scary, I would say. So, you know, if you're home by yourself or if it's nighttime, you're not going to have a hard time sleeping reading this book. Also, this is probably semi-disturbing, but any thriller that has a rhyme in it, I don't know what it is.
Oh, like a little poem or something?
Yes, I absolutely love it. Truly Devious has one, and I just feel like it makes it so creepy to me, and I don't know why, but it gets stuck in your head while you're reading it, and it's just repeating it back to you, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the cover. I loved the 80s vibes. I loved the main character.
The
ending.
The setting is good too.
The ending was so good. I didn't see the ending coming at all. Like the aftermath of the ending. Yeah. The very last page. So good.
Okay. The next book I picked up was None of This Is True, which was a book of the month pick for September. So I was super excited to find this at our library. And this book really intrigued me because it involves a podcast, which I love. And so I was like, you know what? I've never read anything by Lisa Jewell, but I want to read this one because it involves a podcast. So basically this follows our main character, Alex, who has a podcast about just like different successful women and their stories. And her podcast has been like widely successful, but she's kind of bored with it and wants to do something different. And one night she's out to dinner for her birthday with her husband and her big group of friends, and she runs into this lady in the bathroom, and she's like, "Are you celebrating your birthday?" Or she realizes that they're both celebrating their birthday, and so the random lady walks up to her and is like, "Oh my gosh, you're my birthday twin." And so like they randomly start bumping into each other, and Alex is like, "This lady's kind of weird, but like she feels sorry for her," and eventually she starts learning about this other lady's life, whose name is Josie, and Josie starts like telling her life story, and she's like, "Can I make a podcast about your life story, and we'll call it Hi, I'm Your Birthday Twin?" And so she starts telling her life story, and it just gets like more and more bizarre, and then Josie starts getting a little unhinged, we'll say, and then you're just like, is any of this true, you know? I read this really fast, and I really liked it, and I would read more by Lisa Jewell. I would probably say this was like a 4.5 star for me.
Okay, my next book I'm not finished with yet, but today is the 28th. Yes. So I have a few days to finish this, and I know I will, so I want to talk about it, and that is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, which Mother also read. We've read. This is not really helping new recommendations, but I'm just affirming that she is right, and it is good. And I love Shay Earnshaw's writing. The only thing I've read for her is her adult novel, The History of Wild Places, which is Major Village Violence, which we all know I love. And I'm only about 160 pages into this, so I have about 100 pages left. So far, I really like it. The atmosphere is great. But to me, it doesn't read YA at all.
Okay, the next book I read is also by another author I've never read anything by before, and that is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Julian McAllister. So the premise of this book is a mother at the very beginning of the story witnesses her son committing a murder, and she wakes up the next day, the day before the murder happened, and continues to go throughout this book back in time, sometimes just a couple days, sometimes months, sometimes years, to try to figure out like what singular event or events led to her son getting involved in a murder. Because he's like, I think he's in high school in this book, and he's like a nerd, he's like super into science, like he's very intelligent, and so she's like trying to figure out if she went wrong somewhere raising him, if it's like something to do with some of his friends, if it's something to do with his dad, like what is the group of events that happened that led him to commit a murder. So it's kind of like Groundhog Day in that she wakes up every day and it's a different point in time, but it's not just she's living the same day over and over again. She's traveling back in time like continuously. And so I thought the premise was really interesting. It was a little slow at times because it's like, okay, like you went back 3 weeks this day when you woke up, but the next day she goes back like a couple years. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. The premise was interesting, but it was just a little slow. So I would say it was probably like a 3.75, we'll say. And then, my friends, I reread Caraval in my attempt to try to finish this series and what's the other series called? Once Upon a Broken Heart, before the new one comes out. Now, I read this so long ago, and I didn't finish the series, and I don't know why, because I freaking love this. I am in love with this book. Like, I'm going today to buy the second one because we don't have it. But
now I want to reread.
I think really when I read this the first time, I gave it 4 stars, and I would totally give it a 5 star. Totally, like actually. So yeah, if you don't know anything about this book, like where have you been? But basically, this follows 2 sisters, Scarlett and Tella. They live with their dad, who's very abusive, mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, he's just a very bad man. And Scarlett has written to this man, magician-esque person named Legend, who has I don't even know how often it is. It's not every, is it once a year? Because he like kind of goes off the grid. But anyways, he hosts this game called Caraval for 5 nights, and at the end of the game, you get a prize that can be very valuable. And so she writes to him for years, trying to get an invitation to Caraval. It never happens, and then eventually, like right before she's about to get married to a man she's never met, she all of a sudden gets an invitation to go to Caraval. So that's what this book is all about, and I love it so much.
There is descriptive writing, and then there is
Stephanie Garber. She's next level, like
it's like
top tier.
But the thing about her that's so special is it's not descriptive in the way that like you're not paying attention, you're kind of zoning out. It is like you just eat it up. Mm-hmm. It is magical, it is whimsical, ethereal, it is cotton candy writing, and I absolutely love it so much.
Yeah. So, can't wait to pick up the next one. I'm going to get it today. And that is our September wrap-up.
Keep wanting to say October.
I know, already. I mean, not October state of mind, but anyway.
Until October.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.